Alright. A lot of shit's happened since I posted that first part. Nothing that I'd consider good, though. For simplicity, I'll just split this into what I would consider 3 distinct developments. The ongoing investigation, weird shit that's happening with Jeff, and the other videos. Whew. Here goes nothing. Regarding the investigation, the rabbit hole just keeps getting bigger, and I don't anticipate finding any way out of it anytime soon. I've been keeping in contact with one of my buddies. His name is Colt. He's an officer who's been working on this, but the things that he's telling me, I can't make sense of them. Apparently, Colt and his team went down that branch of the tunnel to search, obviously, but what they found made half of the guys quit right then and there. They came across what appeared to be a crudely dug hole, maybe 3 meters in diameter. I used to live in Canada. Metric just makes more sense to me. Supposedly, this hole appeared so abruptly that he nearly fell in himself. Well, it's pretty obvious what happened, right? But here's where shit starts getting bizarre again. They tried illuminating the thing, but no matter how much or how strong the lights they used were, it simply wouldn't penetrate the darkness. At one point, they started thinking that it was some kind of black substance staining the ground, but when they tested it out by dropping coins down it, they went through, and they never made a sound. So yeah, it was a hole, and one that didn't seem to end. But the insanity-inducing shit didn't end there. Allegedly, there were dusty footprints on the other side, so at least some of the ones that disappeared didn't fall in? Well, anyway, they made a makeshift bridge over the hole attempting to get through. Guy who went over first, the unit commander, walked for about 5 seconds out before freezing. He seemed to be looking at something, and then out of nowhere, he flipped his shit, starts scrambling back to the side of the bridge they'd come from, and before they could stop him, he started destroying it. That's a dead fucking end, was all that he said before basically sprinting away. Everybody was so stunned by this that they just followed suit. I mean, he was supposed to be giving the orders after all. After that all happened, he demanded a transfer. When that was denied, he just straight up quit. He never told anyone what he actually saw, and nobody has gone down there since. However, Colt's been hearing rumors. Supposedly, government agents have been popping in and out of the station asking obscure questions. They may have already gone down to the tunnels, farther than Colt and his team did, but he doesn't know. That's where the investigation stands at the moment. No questions answered, but a fuck ton more needing to be asked. As for Jeff, I have no idea. I mean, implicitly, I knew it had something to do with the shadow figure that I saw. I just didn't want it to. I had decided that watching the other videos was the only opportunity that I had to scrape together any kind of an answer about any of this, but when I went over to his place and knocked, well, his door was already halfway open. So I put my guard up. Moving painfully slowly, I grabbed my pistol and made my way in. I swept the place, preparing myself for anything, but there was nothing. The only place I couldn't get into was Jeff's bedroom. It was locked. Actually, I think it might have been barricaded shut. I knocked and knocked, the whole time calling out, telling him that it was me, but he never answered. I knew he was in there, though. I could hear somebody moving around. It was fruitless, though. I did consider simply breaking the door down, but that might have been disastrous. I didn't know where Jeff's mental state was at. There was a chance that doing that would have gotten my head blown off. Nevertheless, the laptop was still open, still there, sitting on the kitchen counter. Yeah, here's where the other videos come in. Well, only one of them, actually. You'll see why. I was feeling paranoid as hell, so I made sure that I had my back against the wall, a clear view of every entrance and hallway and window that I could in front of me. I also didn't let go of my gun. Then, after telling myself to calm down, I clicked on the next video, Investigation. Just like Train to Oblivion, it started out shaky as hell. It remained frenetic, both sights and sounds, for about a minute. When it finally focused, it became obvious that we were in front of what looked like a decrepit apartment building. The camera panned around, revealing a multitude of police cars piercing the night with their red and blue lights. But there were also SWAT vans. It also became evident that this was actual filmed footage, not like Train to Oblivion. I still don't know how that was possible. The camera turned to face a man in SWAT gear who nodded. "It's on there?" Yeah, I think so," the man behind the camera responds. Now, I'm assuming that this must have been some kind of helmet mount or something. And then, "Why the fuck do we have to film this?" he asks. The other SWAT guy shrugs and says, "I don't make the fucking rules." Right after he says this, there's a distortion in the frame. Things get buggy for a second before the video seems to cut to a point where they were already in the building. The place looked like hell. Dirty walls and floors and a decaying foundation. I couldn't imagine that it was a place anybody actually lived in. There were about 7 of them, all climbing the stairwell, and there was also a sound coming from, well, nowhere obvious, but it must have been one of the upper floors. And that fucking sound. It's hard to even describe, like some kind of high-pitched croaking, if you can even imagine that. The climbing went on for a few minutes before one of those distortion cuts happened again. This time they were in a hallway, standing in front of the door. The croaking sound was deafening at this point, and some big must have been happening between the cuts because there were only 4 of them now. One of the guys was even missing his hand. The guy with the camera was desperately pounding and kicking at the door, but no matter how hard he tried, it simply wouldn't budge. Eventually, one of the other guys started screaming at the top of his lungs in what sounded like sheer frustration. He stood back and started loading an M203 on his rifle. Everybody else followed suit, got the hell out of the way. Video distorts again just as he's about to fire it. And when we cut back, the man was on his knees, weeping erratically. The croaking was also still there, loud as ever. The camera pans and we see the door, and despite evident signs of a large explosion, it's still undamaged, fully intact. The last few seconds of the clip consisted of, I don't know, something breaking through the ceiling, and an awfully long, dark red arm reaches down and picks up the weeping man, pulling him upwards. And that's where that clip ended. I barely noticed the cold sweat dripping down my forehead. What the fuck was all this? I got up and paced around, contemplating whether or not to stay, whether or not I was ready to keep watching. I really didn't want to. Inexplicably, though, it felt like I had to. But as it turns out, that decision wasn't up to me. I heard a loud bang coming from Jeff's door only a few moments later. It was coming from inside, obviously. I went over to take a look, but before I could even call out Jeff's name, another bang happened. This time it made a crack. Another bang, and there was a hole. For a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of what I think made it, and then I got the fuck out of that house. I suppose you could call it a void with a kind of form. A solid shadow in the shape of a man. I would have been perfectly okay with never finding out anything more about it, about any of this. But again, I don't think that decision's up to me. I took the laptop. But I don't know what that means for me either. Like I said, I'm not getting out of this anytime soon. And that's one of the things that'll leave you feeling stupid. Whether it's curiosity, the need to know, or just your own nature. Anyway, stay scary, wildlings, and make the most of your nights.